This meeting will come to order. Call the roll, please.
District Commissioner Seth Phillips.
Here.
2nd Congressional District Commissioner Kevin Potter. 3rd Congressional District Commissioner Charles Ortega.
Here.
4th Congressional District Commissioner Chairwoman Lindy Ritz.
Here.
5th Congressional District Commissioner Blake Rainey. At-large Commissioner Jim Putnam.
Here.
At-large Commissioner Jerry Hunter.
Here.
Thank you.
We have a quorum. Next order of business, approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes as distributed? If not, I'll take a motion.
I move we approve the previous minutes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Phillips.
Aye.
Commissioner Ortega.
Aye.
Chairwoman Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Next item, recognition of Oklahoma Experimental Aircraft Association, Chapter 24. Director Arties and Sandra Shetton.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Well done on the new name. You won't have to donate $1 to the jar on my.
Roll off the tongue.
It's trust me, I am probably the most belabored of anybody trying to get that out of the software that's in the head. And the running joke in the office is I've got a jar of I put $1 in every time I use the wrong name.
How's that working for you?
I got about half the salary in there right now, so. But we'll hopefully get it. It's gotten better in the last few weeks. The first 3 or 4 were a little tough. That month of November was a little tough, but we're doing better. So today we have a great recognition for one of our EAA chapters, one of the many EAA chapters we have in the state. They've been doing some amazing things. I have here a letter, commendation from Governor Kevin Stitt, presented to Experimental Aircraft Association Chapter 24 for inspiring young people to pursue aviation and facilitating over 5,000 Young Eagle flights. Your dedication to cultivating community through the Experimental Aircraft Association is an asset to the Oklahoma aviation industry, and I am grateful for the many people involved in this process, from the ground crew to the pilots. Thank you for investing in the next generation of Oklahoma aviators. Signed, Governor of Oklahoma, J. Kevin Stitt. So let's give a little round of applause for Chapter 24.
Would you come forward, please? Mr. Larry Eversmeyer, who is our Vice President. We have Chapter 1098's President, Gary Manning, who's been in the business with our chapter for a long time. We have Pat Konauer, who's our Young Eagle Coordinator. We have Stephen Schmidt, who is our prior Young Eagle Coordinator and done our breakfast for a long time. And finally, we have Lawson Laszlo, who is one of our Young Eagles, who is now a Young Eagle pilot himself. So that's who the program works. So we could recognize them.
I would say very, very appreciative for all the good work you've done. I've seen most all of you out on the airstrip and working for getting our next generation of pilots educated. And Mr. President, do you want to say a few remarks? Do you want to nominate one of these individuals, say a few remarks?
Pat, you want to say a nickel?
Not sure what to say. Just I enjoy doing it. It's not a.
Come to the mic if you don't mind. So.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, we enjoy flying Young Eagles, and it's really not like a job. It's a worthwhile endeavor and something I think, like I said, we all enjoy doing and plan on keep doing it for as long as we can, I guess.
Okay. One of the things I might mention is everybody up here, except for Lawson. How many of you flown Lawson? About 100? Okay. There's flown hundreds. Pat has flown over 800?
950 something now.
Who's counting?
Wow.
And Larry, several hundred as well. Gary. So these guys have been carrying the mail for a very long time, and we're very proud of them. So
I think it's picture time. If we have commissioners stand. And I'll let the president and whoever else want to hold this here in the middle.
Sundance Airport thanks you guys as well.
Thanks to each of you and what you do to inspire young pilots. Very much appreciated.
And I think it's especially rewarding to see a young person up there who was himself once a young Eagle and inspired by that flight, now giving back, a young Eagle giving back to other future young Eagles. Hopefully we'll be able to repeat that process in the future with some of our young aviators that are getting their pilot's license today.
Item 5.
Item 5, Aeronautics fly-in. Sandra, you want to come up here and do this? Obviously, Young Eagles provide flights for not just Young Eagles, but all kinds of Eagles. And Sandra, I'll let you do the next honors.
Be the Gray Eagles, is it?
Good morning, Commissioners. So the Aero Caucus fly-in occurred September 28th, and our caucus chair is still Senator Adam Pugh. And Senator Pugh created a citation, his office. He wished he could have been here today, but he could not be here today, for Gary Manning. And I have a little, if Gary would come forward while I'm showing you guys. These are some photos. We had a lot of people there. We had about 10 legislators there. Usually we fly about 25 legislators. Our count was a little low this year, and we're hoping to improve that next year. But the pilots that came out were just incredible. They did a great job. These are the legislators that we had there. And Senator Chuck Hall was there. An interesting thing is happening in the legislature. There are legislators getting their pilot's license, and there you see Senator Bullard, who has recently gotten his pilot's license there. That's also Nicole Miller. She is the chair of Transportation Subcommittee on Appropriations, and you see there Senator Pugh is the Aero Caucus chair. So we are so grateful for that. And then this is my buddy, oh, wait, there's Senator Pugh with Senator Putnam, or, sorry, Commissioner Putnam. Sorry.
Congratulations.
I'll take it.
That may be a forecast. And then there's Gary. I just want to say something about Gary Manning. Every time I call him, he answers the phone. And when I call, people know that I want something. And I only am calling because I need help. And Gary Manning, every time he and Karen answer the phone, they are so nice. They open their home to the pilot community, and they open their hangar for events. And Gary, I just want to say so much. Thank you for our friendship. And we are going to strategize 2024 with the EAA. Gary and I have a plan. We're excited about that. We serve the pilot community. They are our constituency. We want to make sure that our airports are meeting their needs, and so we look forward to working with the EAA in the future. And Gary, congratulations, and I'll let Director Arties present this to you. Congratulations, sir. Thank you for your service.
Citation of appreciation, Gary Manning. Whereas Gary Manning, a man of wit and wisdom, I like that, with a passion for exploring the skies, he retired from Tinker Air Force Base as WG-11 after 20 years of service. And whereas Mr. Manning worked in postdoc on the KC-135 and has served as a substitute teacher at the Gordon Cooper Technology Center since his retirement. And whereas Gary serves as the president of the Experimental Aircraft Association, Chapter 1098 in Shawnee, he is also a member of the EA Chapter 24 in Oklahoma City and serves on the Ray Scholarship Committee and Board of Directors. And whereas Gary served as president of Pilots Haven Airport Incorporated, which owns Twin Lakes Airport 20 Kilo 2, and has dedicated his life to the aviation aerospace community by organizing and leading civic and community events for the pilot population across Oklahoma. Now, therefore, pursuant to the motion of Senator Adam Pugh and the Senate of the great state of Oklahoma, extends to Gary Manning this commendation and directs that this citation be presented. Congratulations, Gary. What if you want to frame it?
Item 6, approval to fill vacant positions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Unfortunately, after 3.5 years of having very little turnover, we've got a couple of folks that are, after duly dedicated service to the agency, to aviation aerospace, to the state of Oklahoma, are departing us. Kelly Fincannon notified me about 3 weeks ago that he was looking to retire at the end of the year. Kelly's been in the aviation business, consulting engineering business for over 50 years and has done a lot for engineering, done a lot for aviation, done a lot for the state of Oklahoma in his various roles. And he's got a great career, and certainly we will miss him at the agency. And then, of course, my executive assistant, Andrea Post, is moving on to work in the nonprofit arena here in the Oklahoma County area, working with the elderly, and certainly wish them well, and certainly going to miss their service to the agency, to the department, but also going to miss their service to the aviation aerospace community at large. And so today we are seeking to approve filling those 2 positions that will soon to be vacant, the engineering position and the executive assistant position. And staff recommends approval, and after that I'll invite them up to see if they have anything that they'd like to say before they are here at the commission meeting, their last official commission meeting.
Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move for going forward and filling the two positions.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Phillips,
It'll be sad to see you go. Yes. Aye.
Commissioner Ortega,
Aye.
Chairwoman Ritz.
I don't know if I want to do this.
Right.
Okay. Yes.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter,
Aye. I'm not happy.
Very hesitant aye.
She's already working with seniors.
Doesn't this count?
Get a bonus for that.
And she's so good at it.
Commissioner, I had that on my things of things to say, and I crossed it out before I hopped up here, so I'm glad you're able to say it. Kelly, you want to come up and say a few words?
Well, I wasn't really prepared for this, but it's been a privilege and honor to work here, and looking forward to every month or every commission meeting comparing tie selection with Commissioner Putnam. And we, again, have our Christmas ties on instead of other ties that we've shared over the commission meetings. Again, 50 years is probably enough time, and Andrea's been working with seniors, yes. I agree with that statement very well. But again, it's been a privilege and a fantastic way for me to end my engineering career, being able to work with all the airports in Oklahoma. I've had the opportunity to go to every airport with the, which we'll talk about a little bit later, on the pavement condition index studies and investigation we've done. Love airports, still love pavements, and just it's been a great ride the last about 3 years. So thank you very much for having me.
We'll miss you.
Kelly's got some great plans. Plans to do a lot of hiking. Some things he's got on his bucket list. I believe hiking the Appalachian Trail is on the to-do list. We're going to keep repeating that so that he ensures that he is going to do that. We were just talking about that the other day. But it's a very admirable goal in retirement. And yeah, Kelly, I didn't tell you that's one of the few benefits that I get before you leave is to call you up here on the fly and delegate for some non-planned remarks. And Andrea, you're next.
I don't think we're going to accept this.
No,
Yeah, I don't-
no.
Declined, commission declined.
We need to just split that into a consent docket and take those separately then. I didn't give you the opportunity. That's the one good thing about making the agendas, is setting that up. Really, it's been wonderful getting to know you all, and working for the state and working for this fellow right here has been absolutely amazing. He's really brought the team together, and I'm excited to see what's ahead for the agency, even though I'm going to be in a different role now. My degree's in museum work. I'm used to the nonprofit world, and it's a
Relics
it's
or-
a wonderful opportunity for me. But this has been too, and I'm very fond of you all, and I'll miss you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to serve.
Job well done.
Thank you.
We're going to miss you.
Yes. Item 7, you have an introduction, new marketing and outreach coordinator.
Yes, so we have a new person coming on board. So one of the positions you approved for the hiring at our last board meeting, marketing and outreach to support the agency's efforts. Caitlin Wade, welcome to the podium. And I'm going to make you say a few words. Her resume is in your packet, by the way.
They make me sit at the front and now I have to talk. Okay. My resume's in there. That kind of speaks for itself. But I'm not new to state government. I was at ODAA, so not new to the building for about 2 years. And then I've been at Commerce, and now I'm new to aviation, and I'm really excited. I worked with Sandra on a couple of runway openings about 3 years ago, and that was kind of what got me started. And I've been wanting to be in aviation, and I'm really excited. So, yeah.
Great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, we actually worked with Caitlin back in, and I say back in the day, it was really only 3 years ago, but COVID does that for you. It makes things seem like they're further away than they were. But yeah, a couple of our runway dedications in 2020 and I think in 21. So we certainly look forward to seeing her success and being able to help the agency sell the story that much better than we already do. Whew, man, yeah. And she's going to help me on my English, clearly. So, welcome to the team.
Item 8.
Item
staff
8, staff
longevity
longevity.
recognition.
So, Ben has been with us for five years. Really?
Wow.
5 years now? Wow, time does fly. It really does. Seem like we were just bringing Ben on a couple of years ago. But Ben, if you wouldn't mind coming to the podium, and we'll give you a recognition. Ben, you know, when we brought you on and you weren't an aviator, you were a pavement guy, but pavement is pavement, whether it's roadway or airport. Ours just doesn't curve, and that was one of the first things we told you is when you're designing pavement, don't put curves in it. The pilots don't like curved runways. So I think you have come a long way in your 5 years. You're still you still have a love for pavement, I hope. And we have thrown Ben into a lot of other areas, whether it's GIS or Esri or CAD. And so he has gleefully done everything that we put on his plate, and we certainly appreciate Ben's service to the state and some of the things that you've done over the last 5 years. So Ben, I'm going to give you an opportunity to say a few words.
No, I'm very appreciative of working with this great team. It was 5 years. I'm looking at my picture. I used to have some more hair 5 years ago. So see what happened to me. And now Kelly is leaving, and maybe I'm going to have more responsibility. But no, it's been a pleasure working with this lovely group, and I'm very grateful for that. So thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Well, I'm down 45 to go.
Yeah. You're just getting started. Item 9, election of officers for calendar year 2024.
Madam Chair, I'd like to nominate and move that Commissioner Ortega serve as chairman, Commissioner Rainey serve as vice chair, and Commissioner Potter serve as secretary for the calendar year of 2024.
Is there any discussion?
I would second.
All right. Second? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Phillips.
Aye.
Commissioner Ortega.
Aye.
Chairwoman Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Thank you.
You're in for it now, partner.
Right. See, you'll be taking this anytime. Item 10, financial report. Chris Wadsworth.
Morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Starting out with the financial summary document, as of November 30th, the commission had an ending cash balance. I should say the department had an ending cash balance.
Gotcha.
Get you later. Of $20.2 million, encumbrances totaling $11.8 million. Estimated revenue for the remainder of FY '24, statutory revenue is $10.2 million. And outstanding reimbursements owed to the agency total approximately $699,000. The total amount of remaining expenditures that could be incurred this fiscal year totals about $19.7 million, with the bulk of that being the $12.9 million in the airport construction program, provided those grants are approved. This leaves us with an expected available cash balance after encumbrances and expected income of negative $388,000. That is not what our cash balance is going to be at the end of the year. That takes into account if every one of those projects was granted and paid in full by the end of June. That would be our balance. We know that is not going to be the case. Most of those projects will have very little paid on them at all. That goes to show you that with the additional revenue we've received and the appropriations, we are using every bit of it to put back into projects and are planning those projects out. Total fiscal year-to-date expenditures during this fiscal year are $3 million as of the end of November. On the revenue document, total statutory revenue collected for October was $556,000. November was $848,000. Total revenue collected through November this fiscal year is just over $3.4 million, and that compares with $4.4 million for the same time frame last year. So we're down about 20%. As I mentioned last meeting, last year in November, our collections, I believe, was about $1.7 million in excise tax. So we had November and I think January and February were historic months last year. So as we get to those months, I expected that revenue to come down year over year. On the 3-year average, we are still up about $698,000 compared to the 3-year average. Again, going back to FY21 and FY22, we're substantially lower than FY23, but I imagine that gap will continue to close as well unless we get some pretty significant collections over the next month or two. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
If not, thank you. Item 11, 2024 legislative agenda.
2024 legislative agenda, as you all will recall, you approved several of the initiatives that we had brought forward to you at the previous meeting. We have had a few more come up since then. If you'll recall, earlier this year, we decided, or I think actually it was this time last year, to move forward with a foundation, a nonprofit foundation for the support of aerospace and aviation. One of the things that we came through the conclusion of with the new Attorney General's office was that it would be better if we had specific statutory authority to go after that as opposed to the statutes of general applicability that we have for the promotion of aviation. And so one of the bills we're going to be proposing to run with your approval is basically just an authorization addition to Section 85 of Title III that authorizes us to stand up a foundation to meet the goal of what you approved last year in our efforts for the foundation. The second item is hangar building codes. I have made reference to this a couple of different times that with some of the new international building codes and some of the new national fire protection standards, it used to be pretty black and white in terms of when a hangar needed to be sprinkled, when a hangar needed to be foamed, and when it didn't need to be either. But today, the fire codes and the building codes have kind of made it a little bit more convoluted, and it's a little confusing. And so we're not necessarily trying to go back to the way it was, but one of the thoughts is, could the state have a state standard that would be less confusing that said if you're putting a building in of this size, you don't need any fire suppression. If it's going to be over this size, it needs to be sprinkled. And then furthermore, if it's going to be over this size and it's going to have these activities in it, it needs to be foamed. And so that's what that's the other legislative item that we're considering requesting is potentially in state statute having the authority for the state to issue their own building code for hangar construction. One, it simplifies it. We don't have this crossweave across municipalities where some municipalities interpret it one way and other municipalities say, no, everything has to be sprinkled regardless of size, which is obviously a significant hurdle in the hangar construction process. And Commissioner, this would not be just for public airports. This would be for all airports that would be under jurisdictions of cities and towns. So those are the two legislative items that we are asking for approval to add to the slate for the 2024 session, but I'll stand for any questions.
Maybe you can work to streamline that, because when I built 40 new hangars at Sundance, they wanted a handicap accessible bathroom in each one, and a handicap parking space in front of each one, which is absurd. You pull your plane out, you put your car inside, you've got your own parking space. City building codes were nuts to deal with in Oklahoma, in Oklahoma City. And it would be nice to have a state standard that didn't require stupid things for people who don't understand aviation.
That's what we're aiming for. That's a good one. I had not heard that one yet.
Yeah, they tried
But that's a good one.
Bullying me into the bathroom in every T hangar.
Every individual unit of the T hangar?
Every individual T hangar. They wanted a handicap accessible bathroom and a handicap parking space in front of it.
Wow.
Sorry, we can't allow any cars in front of it.
Yeah,
Put your car in your hangar.
yeah.
And a bathroom, that's what we have an FBO for.
But you still need some type of ADA accessibility. I mean, I understand that's,
It's a T hangar.
well, I understand that, you know, and
It's a
that's
barn.
what you're doing. What they were requiring was leaps and bounds, but there needs to be some type of ADA accessibility in that conglomerate of T hangars, something.
What would you have?
Well, whether it's a ramp to get up into the T hangar or a bathroom,
You
something.
can't have a ramp to get into the T hangar. You have to be able to get an airplane into and out of it. It won't roll up more than about 1.5 degrees.
Okay, I'm just saying there needs to be some type of ADA accessibility. That's what codes are for. Keeps everybody happy, so.
But a T hangar, again, is on flat concrete, doesn't need a bathroom. Your bathroom is in the terminal facility. You put your car inside your hangar. We can't have parking in front of it, because then you can't get airplanes up and down the road between the T hangars.
Sure.
A T hangar is essentially, or was once, essentially a pole barn.
Sure.
With closing doors on it. Now, they're nice concrete floors and aluminum and steel and LED lighting and everything else, but there's nothing in a T hangar that isn't already accessible. Put your car in your hangar.
I think one of the things that I would state that, you know, I have seen over the years that if somebody wanted to put a bathroom in one of the end units of a T hangar, so obviously that extra space that's kind of cut off there, especially if you're going nested Ts, that would probably, you know, if you wanted to do that, that would need to be ADA. But if you're not interested in putting a bathroom in, then.
That's what the FBO is
Yeah,
for. Those end
right.
units are typically used for grounds maintenance equipment.
Then that's, yeah, that's certainly.
Lawnmowers, tractors, things like that.
Right, right.
And Director Artis, that is what it will probably be and turn into a discussion at the.
Yeah, it will turn into a
at the
discussion of what should
legislature.
the hangar building
Yeah, sure it
standards
will.
be,
Right.
and I think, you know,
Hangar.
the clarification of, you know, having individual bathrooms in every single unit would be tough. But I know, for example, we have hangars out there where there is no FBO, there is no terminal building, and so they do put a restroom in the last unit of that T hangar, and that would probably need to meet code standards but yeah, the whole bathroom in every T hangar, that's a bit of a head scratcher.
By all means, require a bathroom somewhere on the field.
Yeah,
But again, if you've got a nice FBO, use the bathroom in the FBO and then go to your hangar, because the hangar is for storage
yeah.
of an airplane.
Well, and that's, you know, one of the things that we're talking about, or who we're going to talk to is the Uniform Building Code Commission that's here in the state. And that's one of the discussion points is, okay, how far, you know, what's the reaching of what we need to do for hangar standard construction? My original intent was mostly on the fire protection, fire systems. But obviously, this is a topic that we probably need to maybe add to the list of things to talk about too.
If you elevate the cost of the hangar, you're elevating the cost of rent.
The rent, right,
On the hangar.
right.
And that's already a problem for pilots.
It
We don't
is.
want to raise hangar rents any more than we absolutely have to.
Right.
And you start adding bathrooms and things like that, you're raising the cost.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you. Same issue with our fuel systems. You know, if we do fuel systems a different way in Oklahoma than some of our other states, then, you know, that adds cost, which then in turn means higher fuel prices.
And they're plenty high now,
And yes.
$7 a gallon.
Yes, I hear you. I hear you and understand.
Any other comments before we move for approval? If not?
So
do I-
what action is required? That you have the authority to go forward?
That you would consider adopting these as additional legislative items for our 2024 session.
So these would overrule local guidelines? For example, if Oklahoma City passes something that does require a handicap bathroom in every T-hanger, which takes precedent? City of Oklahoma City or your statewide code?
So that is the goal, is to have a separate standard for hangars in the state of Oklahoma. Which would essentially, if there's an interpretation issue, the state's ruling would rise above any city ruling.
But if a local passed something of a higher standard, would we not have to comply with that as well?
I don't believe so. The intent is to have a statewide standard for hangar construction, not all codes that are associated with an airport, but just specifically on the hangar construction side.
Okay.
So do I hear a motion?
I move that they go forward with those two issues.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortega,
Aye.
Chairwoman Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Thank you.
Item 12, legislative, congressional, and regulatory update.
So we are getting into the nuts and bolts of legislative session here at the state level. Last Friday was bill request deadline. We've got some upcoming draft language deadlines. The Senate has a new process for bills that are going to require a fiscal impact, have to be in by this Friday. We went through our budget hearing on the Senate side last Tuesday, I believe. And that was a more rigorous budget hearing than traditional. As you probably saw, the pro tem came out and indicated that he wanted to have a more transparent budgetary process on the Senate side. And so we were asked a few more questions than usual, had to do a few other things that were not in the typical budget request session. So certainly experienced that last week. And a couple other things on the congressional side. Obviously, we are still working on some CRs, both from the appropriations side as well as the authorizing side. The House and the Senate still cannot come together on a full-term reauthorization. I believe that the House just extended the authorizing language for FAA until sometime in March, if I saw correctly, to give the House and Senate more time to discuss and negotiate, mostly on the 1,500-hour rule issue, which is driving some of the causes for pause on the Senate side. Of course, we know the head of the Senate right now is Mr. Schumer from New York, and the New York families of the Colgan Air Crash are a very powerful lobby against making any changes to that 1,500-hour rule, and so that's what the Senate is currently grappling with. The House has passed their version of FAA reauthorization off the floor. And so hopefully here in the next 3 months with this CR, we will get to that point in time where they have the ability to complete and get us a 5-year reauthorization. No, it's no way to run a railroad, no way to run an airport, no way to run a Department of Defense, or you name the organization in the country of the United States that we live in on CRs. That obviously hinders the amount of federal grants that we can get out the door early on in the season, which means we'll have later federal grants, which means construction will be pushed to 2025, which then just proverbiates the cycle of increased costs and increased challenges with construction. So, Sandra, do you want to talk to him about the legislative updates, or are we going to wait for January on that? Okay. Then that concludes my legislative, congressional, regulatory update. Commissioners?
Okay.
Thank you.
Item 13, 5-year airport construction program. Nick Young.
Morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. For this item, we are seeking to add 5 different projects to our current year at the ACP. This is essentially to, as we've talked a little bit over the past several months, the different funding amounts that we've received, whether it be through the prep funds to the different site locations across the state or through our appropriations. We have been very diligently working through to ensure that we're planning and programming to ensure that we're encumbering those funds so that Chris doesn't run to my office saying, hey, where are these projects at? Because we need to get these moving. So at the first project here at David J. Perry Airport in Goldsby, we are looking to partner with them on a fuel system for their 100 low lead fuel out there. And so it's getting aged, and so they're looking to go forth and replace that. They're actually looking to potentially utilize that as a secondary tank for as long as it'll last, for whether it be MoGas, which they have a big desire for there from some of their tenants, essentially to maximize the revenue while also ensuring that they don't run up against the Oklahoma Corporation Commission in terms of their current system going defunct, as I believe we've talked about with a couple of different airports over the past few months. So we're trying to stay above board, but also be forward thinking, because that is a need that they have. And so I think that the solution that we've worked out with them is going to be a good path forward. And like any fuel system, that'll be a $300,000 maximum partnership from the department. And currently anticipating that to be about $225,000 from the department as it stands today on about a $550,000 project. The second one at Durant Regional Airports, this is for a hangar to support their air evac group that they have out there. This is, it will allow them to bring in additional aircraft, which they're currently only operating helicopters out there. But with that expansion, if there are some discussions on where they're looking to expand some of their fixed wing operations. And so part of this is to show that local support, as we will partner with the city of Durant on this project and then lease it out to the air evac team so that they can bring in that revenue and then look to expand on that taxiway out there, the taxi lane out there, to get some additional business customers or to allow for that additional expansion of the air evac team. Current estimates on that on the preliminary side, looking at about a $1.1 million facility at a 60-40 split on the grant, with our portion looking to be just over $500,000 on that currently at $440,000. And that, again, is primarily designed to store 2 different helicopters that they utilize out there currently, as well as the sleeping quarters and those types of things that they'll need. There's not a big build out on that, but of course they need their facilities so they can be on site for whenever they need to respond. At West Woodward Airport, this is part of the prep funding that they've received for their airport out there. This is to acquire 104 acres for the future expansion that we're working toward with the prep funds out there. And so that's about 104 acres off of one end to secure their future runway protection zone and allow for that expansion as we continue on down, working through that process to come up with the design and the plans long-term as to what the full prep project will look out there in terms of the extension. And finally, it's William R. Pogue Municipal Airport in Sand Springs. This is another fuel system that we are looking to partner in. Their Jet A system has certainly ran its useful life, and they are since they're going to be replacing it, they are going to relocate that to the west side of the airport, which is where they're looking to bring more of the jet activity as opposed to some more of the GA activity on the east side of the airport. So that'll help begin that separation of air traffic from the different types. And also they're looking to not only provide a fuel truck service with that as they get that installed, but also piping that out for a self-serve option for those that are coming in later out at night. That way they're able to get their fuel. Obviously, we know jet drivers typically don't want to pump their own gas, but if you're charging $250, $300 as a call-out fee to operate the fuel, then sometimes they might think twice about that. So again, all of these are to try to bring additional investment into the area from whether it be businesses or current tenants. And staff recommends approval for all these projects, and I stand for any questions. Oh, I might have missed that one. Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry about it. Thanks, Director. Don't want to leave Okmulgee out of the mix. They're just staring at me right in the center of this list. So on this one, this is another that we are looking to add to our terminal building program. Currently looking at about a $2 million project, but anything above and beyond that, obviously, we will not be partnering with them as our $1 million maximum on that. But they do have some reserves if they do need them to utilize some FAA funds to get that over the hump if needed. But essentially all those, whether it be the hangars or the terminals, essentially trying to maximize the footprint that they have out there without ballooning the costs, and all the while building what is necessary and needed rather than what's desired. So it's all in an effort to spur the economic growth at each of these airports. And with that one, I stand for any questions unless Director Artie catches something else.
Questions, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips.
Aye.
Commissioner Ortega.
Aye.
Chairwoman Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Thank you.
Item 14, Airport Construction Grant Program. Ben?
Morning again. For the construction grant program, we only have one item today, with a change order at Stroud Municipal Airport. If you go to next slide, please. Who's in charge? Thank you. The project consists of rehabilitating failing pavement around the new T-hangar facility, and the change order request for total amount of over $167,000, and that will be funded with over $159,000 of a state grant fund and over $8,000 of local matching fund. I stand for any question you may have, but the staff recommends approval.
Questions? Comments?
When will this be done, Ben?
When?
When would this be done, yeah?
It's going to be pretty soon. So the contractor will have to remobilize, but they've been on site doing the construction. As you see on the diagram there, what we originally approved and were constructing was the T-hangar and then all the green and red pavement as a part of the original project. It was butting up to old asphalt, which is to the right of the T-hangar that we're building, as you can see there. And that old asphalt during construction, we were hoping it was going to hold up, but it ended up being about 2 inches asphalt just on dirt, no base, and so it got pretty tore up. The alternative that we were looking at was, maybe $10,000 or $20,000 just to go patch the current asphalt, but that was only going to get us a couple of years down the road. So what we're looking at here is a reconstructing concrete from the edge of the hangar to the center line of the taxi lane, and hopefully they will be able to remobilize in the beginning of the new year. And with the warm weather we're experiencing right now, hopefully be able to get started sooner rather than later. Because we don't want, basically essentially the east side of that new T-hangar unit is unusable until they fix the pavement. They can't get any tenants in there unless they're going to tug them in and out.
Okay, thank you.
And just for your information, last week Kelly and I, we just went for the final inspection for the hangar and also that concrete pavement that they had. So we have some picture. You're going to see them in the slide that Kelly going to present for you. So.
All right, thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I move for approval.
About a second.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Phillips.
Aye.
Commissioner Ortega.
Aye.
Chairwoman Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Thank you.
Item 15, Prep Fund Project.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, item 15 is a prep fund grant project that we are considering, the project you just added into the ACP back under Nick Young's item 13. There is acreage that needs to be acquired at the north end of the Woodward Airport to realize their runway extension, specifically for the relocation of their approach lighting system. The landowner wanted to sell the entire lot of land to the airport. And that while we were originally just going to acquire a small chunk, we decided that based on the cost of the land and the cost of having to go just the eminent domain route, if we just wanted a sliver, plus this allows us to acquire much of the runway protection zone, which we know we've had our issues with on runway protection zones as of late. So we think this is a good addition to their prep project. Total cost for the 104 acres is $214,800. Of course, with the prep funds, it's 100%, so funded 100% by the prep funds. And staff recommends approval contingent upon receiving an acceptable grant application.
Any questions? Comments?
Refresh my memory, where the prep funds come from?
Prep funds was the specific dedicated appropriation that the legislature allocated last fall of '22. And it was for the $250 million pot total across the state, but aviation aerospace received we received a little over $100 million. Aviation in total received about $225 million ARPA and prep, which was kind of a combination of the monies that were allocated in the fall of '22. And so Woodward received $20 million to improve their industrial park, and one of the big projects that they were looking at doing was a runway extension. They have a approach light system on that north end, and so to get the approach light system relocated, and then of course acquire the RPZ, that's why this project came to light.
Okay, thank you.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, please.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Ortega?
Yes.
Chairwoman Ritz?
Yes.
Commissioner Putnam?
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter?
Aye.
Thank you.
Director, I have item 16, prep fund update.
Item 16, prep fund update. So as we've done historically throughout our receiving of the prep funds in the fall of '22, wanted to give you an update as to where those monies are at and some of the current statuses of those projects. If you remember the 4 mega projects, Tulsa Tower, Will Rogers MRO hangar, Ardmore Air Cargo Development, and then the Woodward Airport Industrial Park Development were the 4 major mega projects. We have the $14 million discretionary hangar fund, which those hangar dollars have been identified. Of course, Durant was just added to that list today. The projects, most of the mega projects are in some state of design or bidding out. So you approved the first construction project at our last meeting for Ardmore, and that one is going to be under construction here in the next couple of months on the parallel taxiway piece for their air cargo development. Woodward, their first actual action item will be the land acquisition, but then they are looking to bid out in Q1 or Q2 of next year the hangar, the terminal, and some other development areas to bring in potential aviation industrial businesses. On the Tulsa Tower, they are, I think, on the cusp of being able to bid that project out in Q1 of '24. And same for the MRO hangar at Will Rogers. Design, I believe, is getting close to finished, and they are currently relocating the gas line, which brings in gas to their fuel farm, so that we can build that hangar, because the hangar will be on the gas line footprint right now. So we are certainly excited about these monies, understand these were one-time monies, and they are going to do some amazing things. I would, as I've told everybody, break out your gold helmet and shovels for next year, because there's going to be a lot of groundbreakings, and we're going to be celebrating a lot of those activities. So hence it's good that we brought Caitlin on to join Sandra, because we're going to have a lot of celebrations out there in 2024 as these projects get underway, and hopefully come 2025, all those projects will be complete, and we'll have a lot of great hangars, a lot of great aviation industrial developments, a lot of economic development, plus ups for our Department of Commerce to be able to go recruit new businesses too. So that is my prep fund update, but I'll stand for any questions.
Okay. Hearing none. Item 17, airport construction program update. Short timer. Kelly.
Did you ever have a conversation or somebody say something to you, and as soon as you leave and go away, you have this pithy statement you wish you would have said to them? Well, I just had that experience, and if I could take the liberty to go back to item 6 on my retirement. I addressed the commission, what a privilege it is working for all of you. I failed to mention what a privilege and honor it's been to work with all the department staff and working with and for them. And I just want you to know what an intelligent group of people, what a competent group of people, and maybe more important than all that even is what a dedicated group of people they are, dedicated to the commission, to the state, and to our airports in the state. And it's really been a privilege for me to work with all of them, and I will miss everyone deeply. Now, on to 17. This is the airport construction program. And we'll run through these projects that we did this last year. At Alva Regional Airport, we installed an AWAS system at that airport for a total of a little over $101,000. And here's some pictures of the AWAS system. At Ardmore Municipal Airport, we constructed a 120 by 120 box hangars. The total was a little over $2 million. Nice hangar. At Chickasha Municipal Airport, there was a rehabilitate runway 1836 and taxiways with a total $620,500. At Claremore Regional Airport, we had an apron rehabilitation project with a total of $1.37 million. Also at Claremore was AWAS construction, $106,180 total project amount. At the Clinton Regional Airport, there was a runway rehabilitation with a total of a little over $2.7 million. Also at Clinton Regional Airport, there was a terminal apron rehabilitation with a total almost $443,000. Again, at Clinton Regional Airport, construct a new 92 by 70 foot box hangar, almost $745,000. At Goldsby, David J. Perry Airport, rehabilitate terminal apron and install perimeter fencing and gates. Total project cost was a little over $776,000. At the Enid Woodring Airport, reconstruct runway 1331 with a total of $2,429,000. Also at Enid, we installed LED lights, PAPIs, flight inspection, and an obstruction survey for $471,300. Again, at Enid, construct a new 120 by 120 box hangar for $1.6 million. At Frederick, rehabilitate runway lights and PAPIs for a total of a little over $778,000. At Grove Regional Airport, rehabilitate runway 1836 pavement and lighting. Total project cost was $3.57 million. Also at Grove, there was AWAS construction for a little over $106,000. At Hobart Regional Airport, this is one of the projects that Ben and I designed ourselves and did in-house, and the total project for the runway rehabilitation was $313,000. At Idabel McCurtain County Airport, runway and lighting rehabilitation project, the total cost there was a little over $3 million. At Muskogee Davis Field Airport in Muskogee, airfield lighting improvements for a little over $1 million. At Pauls Valley Airport, construct 100 by 100 foot hangar for almost $1.3 million. At Perry Municipal Airport, this is another project that Ben and I worked together on and designed and put out to bid and did the inspection on for a runway rehabilitation at Perry, and that total cost was $335,000. At Purcell Regional Airport, it was construct 2 new 50 by 50 box hangars at almost $630,000. At Sallisaw Municipal Airport, AWAS construction for $106,000. At South Grand Lake Airport in Ketchum, AWAS construction for $231,500, and this was a brand-new AWAS system, so it was a little bit more. At Stan Stamper Airport in Hugo, construct aircraft storage hangar for $105,448. At Sigler Regional Airport, airfield lighting rehabilitation for almost $300,000. At Stroud Municipal Airport, construct taxi lane for the T hangars. This is the one that Ben had talked about just earlier, for $329,000, a little over that, $329,000. And then the Stroud Municipal Airport, again, it's the pavement along with that project. And you can see there, it's funny, that picture is a panoramic view. It's not really curved like that. If you look at the left picture, it's really how it looks. But you can see the whole hangar. Yeah, that pavement's not really, Ben didn't design a curve in the pavement there. So, yes, Stroud Municipal Airport, construct the T hangars. That was, the first one was pavement. This is the T hangars for a little over almost $1.4 million. And again, that panoramic view kind of bends that hangar around, doesn't it? At Thomas Municipal Airport, construct hangars and apron for almost $849,000. At Tulsa Riverside Airport, realign and rehabilitate taxiways Alpha 4, Alpha 5, Kilo, and Lima for $3.3 million. And all those together, there were a total of 29 projects that we did last year at 22 airports, and the local investment in those projects was a little over $6 million. The department's investment in those projects was a little over $6.77 million. And the FAA invested $18,622,853 for a total of $31,401,053 this last year. So we've been busy.
Looks like it.
I'll stand for any questions.
If not, we'll move on to airport pavement management system update.
Well done. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
very
you.
good.
Okay, this is our pavement condition index studies that we do. Just kind of a reminder to go through this real quickly. The FAA requires the pavements at airports to be inspected once a year if the airports do it, or they require it once a year at all the airports, unless you do a pavement condition index formal study like we do, and then it's required once every 3 years. And because the pavements at general aviation airports especially is the largest capital investment that we make at our airports, we definitely want to be aware of the pavements, maintain those pavements, and see where they are. So just a quick reminder of what we do. We do a pavement inspection where we gather data. We look at the distress type, the severity, and the quantity of each one, and quantify that. Then we input that data into a paver program, run paver, and we get a pavement condition index for each of the different pieces of the airport, whether it's the runways, the taxiways, or the aprons, and all the pavements at the airport. And then with that, we provide a letter to the airport and to the FAA that summarizes our findings and provides that data, and we give them a picture of the whole airport with the data and the PCI, pavement condition index number, of each branch and each piece of the airport plus the overall airport. And then we update our ArcGIS, and anybody can go online and see these PCI numbers and other things about the airport online in our department's website. So let's go through these. Back in 2021, these were the airports we inspected. And then in 2022, you see those are the airports we inspected. There are about 30-something airports a year. And then this last year, we completed the rest of the airports as you see in this picture. The next picture shows all those together, and you can see the PCIs and how many airports we did each year, and the PCIs for that group of airports. And then overall, this picture shows the average airport PCI was 79, which falls in the satisfactory range. And the average runway PCI is 82, which is a little better, and also falls in the satisfactory satisfactory line. That legend down at the bottom, those color codes shows you what each of the airports are. And you can see that most of them are in the good, the satisfactory, and fair range. There's one airport in the poor range, in that red one down in the southwest corner of the state. That's actually Chattanooga, and so it falls in that poor range. If we look at these in terms of something that maybe we're more familiar with, like grades in school, if poors are a D category, which is the red, and there was one of those, we had 16 fair, or you might give it a grade of C, so there were 16 of the yellow ones. There was 52 of the light green ones, which is satisfactory, and if you gave that a B rating, and then there was 26 good, or which you would give an A rating, the dark green colors. And overall, if you added all those up, you would have to give our state a high B plus for our airport pavements, which is really pretty good. When you look at ASCE's, American Society of Civil Engineers, report cards they give out every year, a lot of the infrastructures across the United States are sometimes C's and D's, so a B plus is actually pretty good. Of course, we want to work on that. We want to keep all the pavements in that satisfactory to good range, and all these projects we had in the last item is what we're doing to maintain those pavements and keep them in that satisfactory and good condition by doing maintenance. And the cost efficiency of that, as the pavement starts dropping off in condition, if you can repair it soon and monitor and know what to do and make those recommendations and get them done, then you keep the pavement in good shape, and it's a very cost-effective way to do it. And as far as Chattanooga, the one that is in the red and the poor range, we do have projects to reconstruct the two pavements that were really failed. And I'm sure that when those two projects are completed in the next year or two, that pavement will go up into at least the satisfactory range, and it'll be a lot better. So that map will even look better with no red dots in it. With that, I will stand for any questions.
Hearing none.
I will say that next year we start again. We do this every 3 years, so we start over at those first ones and go back through this.
All right. You get to stay up. Item 19, Airport Master Record Inspection Update. And Jace
That's
is coming
Jace.
up.
Yes. I always had a loss there for a minute.
I threw my work at you, you didn't know about that. Morning, Madam Chair, Chairman. So I'll be giving a 50-10 update this past year. So it was a great year. We did 56 inspections. We finally caught up from our 2020, 2022 cycle with the COVID and everything of that nature. So we started our first year of our 3-year cycle. We had 3 airport changes in this year, with 2 of them closing and 1 of them switching from public to private. The 2 that closed was the Cherokee Seaplane Base and El Reno Gibson, and then the one that switched over was the Catoosa Helipad. So that was our biggest updates from this year, and our inspections. It was a great year, as I said. A lot of great things came out of our inspections, whether it was things to help us out in our ACP, identifying projects, or creating opportunities for outreaches. Next slide, it was as you can see, all our invoices and our ADIPs for the 2023 year, and our next 2 slides would be 2024 and 2025. Stand for any questions.
Questions? Comments? If not, thanks,
Nope.
Jace.
Thank you.
Item 20, Aircraft Pilot and Passenger Protection Act. Tom Galloway.
Good morning.
Morning.
So our Aircraft Pilot and Passenger Protection Act, as you know, is our airspace protection program for the airspace near airports in the state. This year in calendar year 2023. Thank you. In this calendar year, we had 12 total actions, down from 72 last year. There are a couple of reasons for that. Mainly, we did not have any big projects come in this year. So of those 12 total actions this year, we had 3 wind turbines and 9 miscellaneous structures. 5 were denied, or 5 were approved. 5 are still pending as of today. 2 were denied, or broken out another way. We had 12 total structures. 10 of them were tall structure permits, and 2 of them were incompatible use permits. Where are we? Go back 2 slides, please. So this is a list of where we stand as of this moment. Now moving on. So going back to our 2022 end of year, when I spoke with you on the 7th of December last year, we had 54 pending at that moment. Of those 54, every one of them was determined between the commission meeting and the end of year. So they did not show up on last year's report, and they don't show up on this year's report. But I think it's important to know what happened to those 54. So we had 48 approved, 6 were withdrawn, and as you can see, 53 of those were all one wind project, and that does account for the big discrepancy between the 72 total projects we had last year and the 12 that we have this year. That concludes my report. The numbers are in your handout if you'd like to look for those. I will stand for any questions.
Questions or comments? All right, thank you. Item 21, Wind Energy Development Act Compliance Update. Nick Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For this year's Title 17 wind energy notifications, just a brief overview of what that process looks like. Whether there is if there is a new wind energy program or facility that's being constructed, they have to notify the department, us of the department, as well as the Oklahoma Corporation Commission. Our responsibility from there is then to forward that information on to the Oklahoma Strategic Military Planning Commission. And the goal there is to make sure that the Oklahoma installments have a seat at the table to ensure that they are discussing what objections they may have to some of these structures, how some of these structures may affect their training routes and those types of things. So as we get sent the initial notifications, we send those on to OSMPC, the Strategic Military Planning Commission, within 10 days. And we do the same thing for subsequent. So let's say the initial comes in, and then 2 months later there's a subsequent, they file some new structures, those types of things. Originally they would have 30 days to get to us. On the subsequent, they have 10 days to get to us. And that's just so that we can make sure that everybody's keeping apprised of where these big projects are, because a lot of times what you'll have happen is initial submission, and then you'll have some that they just pull out because they say, well, we know it's not going to work because these land leases aren't working out. And so it's a very long, arduous process in working with some of these developers, simply because so many variables are changing on their end, but they're still wanting to make sure they're upholding the letter of the law and notifying us of literally everything that they have coming down the pike. So I say all that to say, whereas we've had several dozen in previous years, this year our notifications have gone down to 8. So we are down to, that's primarily because a lot of the big projects are now past the initial hurdle of getting their Title 17 endorsements and reviews by the Department of Defense and getting their mission compatibility letter and all those types of things. And so now what we're seeing is just modifications to some of those existing projects, and then the smaller ones that are popping up here and there as they're getting some new land leases in other areas of the state. So for all of the 8 that we have received for the year 2023, 2 of those have received their mission compliance letter. The rest are still working through the process of the mitigation teams that were set up by the Department of Defense. As they got, basically there was initial review that sent it on to, basically created a team that then reviews the structures and either provides the mission compliance letter or a denial from their perspective. So our job there is just to make sure that all of those things, the communication is happening, and also a big part of that is just me making sure that I communicate with the wind energy developers on what we need up front. And also, I think the other reason that they don't call me or they don't send these in quite as much is because they call me first. They've learned that if they call me first, I can save them and myself a whole lot of time and effort. And so we've had a really good dialogue being built by the vast majority of the wind energy companies that do business in the state. So with that, I stand for any questions.
Good job. Thanks, Nick. Item 22, Bessie Coleman Aviation All-Stars Pilot Program, Paula Keaty.
Good morning, Commissioners. In item 22, we are seeking approval to develop a partnership with the Bessie Coleman Aviation All-Stars out of Chicago. Many of you have had the opportunity to meet Gigi Coleman, her great niece. She's been in the state several times in this past couple of years and has worked with Sandra a lot in some of our events. We've built a really strong partnership with the Bessie Coleman program. And how it would work, what we're hoping to do this year is just field test this, pilot test this with Weatherford Public Schools, Pryor Public Schools, and Hawthorne Elementary in Tulsa, from the Tulsa Public Schools. In the after-school program, the students would watch some virtual presentations from Chicago, pilots, air traffic controllers, flight attendants, etc., for part of their after-school program, and then they would do hands-on projects and activities to hopefully get them more interested in moving on to high school aviation coursework. You may not be aware, but many of our schools now, these 87 that are teaching the AOPA curriculum, are now looking at me going, what do we do with our we want our middle school kids. We want our elementary school kids. You know, there's not existing curriculum necessarily for those levels. So we're trying to dip our foot in the water here, our toe in the water, with some after-school programming for some 6th or 7th grade, whichever the schools choose to do that. So we are requesting approval to move forward with this partnership with the Bessie Coleman Aviation All-Stars out of Chicago.
And $2,500?
Yes, for $2,500.
Okay.
Is that the cost of the Bessie?
No, there really is no cost to that. It's the supplies, the rockets, the various things that they're going to build at those schools.
Okay. Questions, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I recommend approval. I
Here.
move for approval.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips.
Aye.
Commissioner Ortega.
Aye.
Chairwoman Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter. Thank you.
Motion approved. All right. Item 23, Aviation and Aerospace Education Update.
Yes, on item A, I will just let you know that the window is open for new schools to apply to teach either the AOPA or choose aerospace curriculum for next school year for 24, 25. It's hard to imagine. As those schools move forward. So that window is open. In fact, we've already had about 6 schools, new schools, be approved for next year by AOPA, and I'm sure we'll have many others. I also did get data from AOPA. There are just under 4,000 Oklahoma students now enrolled in aviation high school coursework. So in 2017, we had 18 kids enrolled, and we're just under 4,000. So we're very pleased about that number as we move forward. On item B, I was asked to give the keynote address at the Louisiana Airport Managers Association Conference. I'll have to say I never really thought that would be in my job description, but I did. The reason they asked me to come is they wanted to know what we are doing in Oklahoma. And that's always an honor to be able to share the work that we've done with other states. And as you know, many of the airports are not, some of them are also under their departments of transportation, but many of them do not have aviation education programs. And they were wondering, how do we start and how do we make some steps to go forward with aviation education? So that was an honor for me. I also spoke on the Chickasaw Nation Student Aerospace Career Panel on November 9th. Michelle and I had the opportunity to attend the Aircraft Owner Pilots Association National Conference in Orlando, where I was also asked to give the keynote address. We had over 50 Oklahoma teachers in attendance, which was a large percentage of the schools that were there. About 5 of those teachers in that picture also were asked to give some presentations and/or show some projects. So we were very involved, and really, really an honor to hear how much we're revered in the nation for the work that we're doing in aviation education. On a different note, on item E, I was asked by the Chickasaw Nation to go to the National Social Studies Conference in Nashville a week and a half ago to speak about some curriculum that I'd written before I came to the department. I wrote some Pearl Carter Scott curriculum for the Chickasaw Nation, and as many of you know, Sandra has Pearl Carter Scott posted on every piece of material that we have. Yes, she has Pearl Carter Scott fever, America's youngest pilot, but we kind of use her as our symbol often for women in aviation. So I was asked to go to Nashville and teach the curriculum that we'd written earlier, so many years ago, 5 years ago, at the Social Studies Conference. So that was a great opportunity to be able to do that. And then this past Saturday, I was asked to give the commencement address at East Central University. What an honor that was. I think, I know, I think when they put Aerospace by your name, you get a lot more credibility than you used to have. I'm not sure why.
You got to earn it.
But anyway, I was quite honored to be asked to do that. As we move forward on the school meetings, I have been doing some work with John Marshall High School and Oklahoma City Public Schools, and I'm happy to report, as of yesterday, have a meeting established with Oklahoma City Public Schools. And so we are making steps after steps, and more schools. Jinx has already been approved by AOPA, which is a large school, obviously, in the Tulsa area. For them to enter into aviation programming is significant. And on the flip side of that, I was also at Mulhall, Orlando, up by Stillwater, one of our smallest schools. Very excited, again, about moving forward with Oklahoma State being very close to them as a support partner. That will be a very positive thing. So I'll continue to move on. Jace and Thomas also went to Cushing and spoke to the aviation classes there. So aviation education has become a team effort, and we're very proud. We're very proud of the work. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
How many schools do we have fully approved now? I know you've got some in the...
We have 87 that are teaching it now.
Okay.
And then we have 6 new ones approved as of this week, I ask. And I probably have about 15 in the application process. I think we'll be well over 100 by the time school starts in August. So.
That's amazing. Yeah, great leadership.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments?
I'm just continually impressed with how much you've been able to get done. It's really amazing.
And the impact.
Thank you so much. It's been very rewarding.
Thank you. Doug, Unmanned Aerial Systems and Advanced Air Mobility Update.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman.
Good morning.
And members of the commission. And as always, Paula is a difficult act to follow. A couple of personal notes before we get started. The Aerocaucus Day I attended that for the first time. It was a lot of fun, and my 22-year-old daughter got to fly in her first airplane ride that day, so that was great. I'm also going to miss Andrea working with the elderly, as is true with most emotionally charged events. You have a story behind it. I'm not going to tell the story, but I distinctly remember the day at my previous agency where I realized I was the old guy, and that was a shocking realization that, when did that happen? So anyway, on that note, I think I may have early onset Alzheimer's because I may have sent Sandra the second to last version of my PowerPoint, so this may be a little bit of an adventure. So.
Oh.
You left it though, did you not? I have to leave it. Thank you. All right. I think that's coming up next.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go through some of the, we're not ready for that yet.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to go through some of the events and conferences that I attended, and then a list of visits throughout the state. We set a goal for this year, which we exceeded greatly, and then an update on some of the projects that we've been involved in. So we're on a time crunch a little bit, so I'm going to go through these pretty quickly, and then if you have any questions, we'll talk to those. So in March, Sandra and I attended the Helicopter Association International Conference with ACES and Commerce there. I attended the Drone Responders Public Safety Conference the next week in Williamsburg, Virginia, where I spoke on a panel regarding the Virginia fix and our efforts to become involved in that, which we'll probably cover a little bit later. Aero Day at the Capitol, we had a panel of 8 industry experts, boots on the ground people that were working in aviation, aerospace, and specifically in the drone space and advanced air mobility space, that met with a number of legislators. Representative Miller, I believe, is here, and a number of other representatives, Representative Townley, Representative Miller, Minter, and several others had a meeting where we were able to discuss UAS and advanced air mobility topics and answer some questions. I sat on a panel at the ODAA State Conference last year, also on the future of advanced air mobility and what that's going to look like, and timelines, and what we may see here in Oklahoma. And then attended the AUVSI Exponential Conference in Denver, again in partnership with ACES and Department of Commerce. Next slide. There's our some pictures of our event, the Aero Day at the Capitol, and Sandra there at the Heli Expo. Next slide. The Thunderbird Drone Festival, Paula and I attended that. She was one of the featured speakers and talked about the AOPA program, and I again sat on a panel talking about emerging aviation, UAS, and AAM. We went to the Tulsa Regional Advanced Mobility Summit, Grayson and I, and we went there. Tulsa Innovation Labs was the keynote, kind of the organizer of that event, and there was a large number of experts on several panels discussing UAS, advanced air mobility, and what we're looking at in the Tulsa region to advance those technologies. We also attended the Choctaw Nation Oklahoma Emerging Aviation Technology ribbon cutting. And Grace and I attended the Advanced Air Mobility Multi-State Collaborative in Herndon, Virginia, which I'll talk about in just a little bit. Next slide. There's Paul and I there at the Thunderbird Drone Festival. They had a drone light show, which featured our state logo, and then me sitting up with a bunch of other very important people. Let's see if it'll play. So this is a small sample of one of the videos that played at the Drone Festival.
Hey, it's time for dinner, buddy.
Okay, I'll be back in a bit. Ah!
So obviously some creativity. There was some drone footage and the gentleman that made that video, that's Chris Castor. He's the kind of the founder of the Thunderbird Drone Festival. So there were probably 2.5 hours of various videos from all over, exemplifying the use of drones and drone footage for that. Several pictures there. On the right-hand side is us at AUVSI in partnership with Commerce. The middle picture is the Choctaw ribbon cutting. And then at the Tram Summit, Dr. Jamie Jacob, Mr. Billy Nolan, who's the former acting director of the FAA, and then Dr. Michelle Harper, who's with the MITRE Corporation. So the AAM Multi-State Collaborative, we were invited, along with a number of other states, in partnership with the Virginia Innovation Partnership Corporation and Jobs Ohio, to be initial members of an effort to take advanced air mobility and the future of advanced air mobility and what it's going to look like, and try to come up with some ideas and presentations and effort that we can take to the FAA and to others and federal government and say, this is what we think this looks like, allowing for what's important for each of our states, but as what we think is going to be synonymous with all the states. Well, obviously, you're going to have different areas of focus. Oregon's going to look a little bit different than Oklahoma is going to look. But at a base level, these are the things that we think all of the states are probably going to need as far as infrastructure and legislation and a number of other things. So that meeting went very, very well. We'll have some follow-up meetings. They put out a press release in late part of November, I think the 19th. And so that was a great first meeting that Director Arties and I attended. Next slide. These are just a list of meetings that I attended around the state. I'm not going to go through all of them. The May meeting there was in Clinton, Sherman, OSIDA, and the local Chamber of Commerce had an event where Senator Langford came and spoke, and a lot of the comments were around job creation and around bringing in industry and recruiting people to western Oklahoma, and obviously the challenges of doing so in terms of infrastructure out there and housing and things like hotels and all of those things that would draw a populace to an area. So that was a productive and interesting conversation that he held. Next slide. I'm not going to show that video. Well, it's already going. So this is the 2023 Blackout Aerial Drone Competition that was held at Rose State College. I just put a little sample in there. This is kind of like aerial foosball. I mean, they have to take the little balls and using drones move them from one place to another, and then the other team gets to push their drones out, their little balls out of the way. So Rose State has had a number of efforts, or a number of events in the USAAM space and aerospace, and have been very heavily involved in USAAM and aerospace, having the Boeing Industry Day, where they brought people in and taught them how to onboard to Boeing and to tinker and getting into that defense space, especially the small mom and pops that are doing low volume but high quality parts, and the difficulty in getting through. A lot of it is the cyber side and trying to make sure that they're up to the cyber standards of DoD onboarding. So next slide. We had our very first, the Emergency Aviation Technology Subcommittee had its very first in-person meeting. We've been meeting for almost 2 years, a year and a half, mostly virtually. We came together at the Ham Institute last November. We had a number of folks from HNTB who was there. They're our consultants, which I'll discuss here in just a minute. We had a number of other folks. Representative Miller was there. We had people from ODAA was there, and several others that came and attended that meeting as well. So we took a tour. James Spencer of the OSU Launchpad gave a presentation on their Tulsa facility. Shay Fehrenbach talked about the UAS Center of Excellence, Counter UAS Center of Excellence, and what they're doing down at Fort Sill. Victoria Natalie spoke about OAIR, as did Dr. Jamie Jacob. So, and there's a few of the participants. Tom Robbins was there, Amy Walton was there, both on the Advanced Mobility Council. So we'll talk just real quickly about some updates. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we're trying to do is provide an online resource for people to go and see what are the UAS and AAM resources in the state. And so this is an example that I put together, and then I think this is going to be superseded by HNTB's efforts because they have done this on a much grander scale based on all the research they've done. And so I think we're going to be able to use their version of this, which will be a lot better. But you can see there in the lower right-hand corner is the outline of the Choctaw Nation's Daisy Ranch. The yellow area is their current UAS testing area where they can fly without beyond visual line of sight. The drones can fly away from them. The red area is the actual boundaries of the ranch. The white area is where they can fly extended visual line of sight with radar. And then the pink corridor is their new corridor between McAllister and Durant. And now I believe they're looking at extending that into the Frisco, Texas area in cooperation with the North Texas Council of Governments. And that they just made that announcement, I believe, a week ago that the area that is in pink has been authorized by the FAA for their beyond visual line of sight long-range corridor flights.
What the altitude are they going to be able to fly?
I don't remember that, sir. I want to say 2,500 feet, but I'm not sure that's accurate. I read the press release and I didn't.
I'm bopping from airport to airport at 2,500 feet. I want to eat a drone on the windshield.
Yeah, they have a very specific waiver from the FAA. They have very specific parameters. It's a testing corridor, not a routine, we're just going to go fly it corridor. They have very specific parameters that they have to meet before they can actually do that. But it's, I believe, the first in the kind in the nation for that particular type of corridor.
When they were in the corridor, they put them in the noticed airman?
Yes, I believe they do. I believe that's all part of the waiver. The FAA waivers are very specific in the things that they have to do. There's a lot of time requirements, notification requirements.
Okay.
So, real quick, we'll go back to the last slide. Upper right-hand corner is the new Skyway 36 range in cooperation with Oklahoma State University, the Osage Nation, Skyway 36. And that's going to be their testing area. On the left is obviously the Clinton Sherman Spaceport and the horizontal launch corridor area that's out there. So this is just an example of what people would be able to go on the website and see, and there's other slides that would be available for resources for education and education outreach across the state and what each institution may be doing. And then there's other slides for what industries we have in the state specific to UAS and AAM. So that would be a interactive map that they could use to find those resources. Next slide, please. So on our OSIDA radar project, we have sent the RFP back to OMES, I think for the second time. They've sent it back for corrections and comments. So we're waiting to see if the version that we have sent to them is ready for approval or if we'll have to make additional corrections to that. The current, this map is an example of what may be sent to us by companies wanting to provide this resource. And so the basic testing requirements at this time are 4,000 to 18,000 feet and a 5 mile by 10 mile long testing corridor, which would be the green area. That's not the precise location where that testing corridor might be. I just put that there as kind of an example. The two yellow circles would be the radar coverage, and this is what we would be using the prep funds for to purchase the radar coverage and other sensor data to provide for that testing. And so I put two big circles in there kind of showing how the overlapping circles show how much coverage we need to prevent incursions by manned aircraft or unmanned aircraft that may conflict with that testing and the large testing area. So this is just kind of an example to give you a visual representation. Long-term, that testing area that's now green may encompass that entire smaller kind of football-shaped area, and we would need to expand the radar coverage if we had larger, faster-moving aircraft for testing. So I just put that in there as kind of an example of what that may look like. So, and last slide, please.
Kratos is flying pretty big stuff, aren't they?
I think they have two, the Firejet and the Valkyrie. The Firejet is a smaller aircraft, I would say probably on par with some of those small, single experimental aircraft. Maybe it would fit here in this room. The Valkyrie's considerably larger.
Okay.
So, and then finally, our Oklahoma strategic plan in partnership with ODOT, the Advanced Mobility Council and Secretary of Transportation authorized the creation of the Oklahoma Mobility Strategic Plan for both air and ground. So the Emerging Aviation Technology Subcommittee was created for the air side. The Autonomous Vehicle Working Group has been working on the ground side. One of the things that we found out early on was it was much too large a project for people who have day jobs. And so after consultation with Secretary, he authorized us to have a partnership with HNTB consultants. And so they have been doing a majority of the research and interviews and groundwork on that. We are at the stage where they have most of that put together and it's in final review at their stage. This is just a couple of examples of snips from the report, from the potential report. Obviously, we have to have them bring that back to us, both the Autonomous Vehicle Working Group and the subcommittee, to review, because those are the two groups that were originally created to do this work. So we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to go a final review and make some revisions or some suggestions or comments, and either based on things that they may find that they disagree with, or updates and new things that have happened in the last 6 months. So once they get through with that review, and then it'll go to back for final publication. I believe that is the general plan. So hopefully we'll have that out. We would like to see it out in January. So we're hoping that that will come out in that time frame. And then that'll provide two kind of one-pagers, or kind of two short documents that we can hand, one that's dedicated to air and one that's dedicated to ground, and then one large document that's the complete strategic plan for the state. So, and I believe that concludes my slides, unless you want to watch the video again. And I'll stand for any questions.
Questions, comments?
Busy, impressed.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you guys since January because, well, if you've seen all of the other work that the agency has been doing, as the director has said before, we're small but mighty. And as these commission meetings get longer and longer and longer because of all the work that everyone's doing. So I'm hoping I get to see you before next November, December. So
Hope so.
Thank you.
Hope so. Thank you. Director Arties, Airport Operators Association membership.
Yes, Madam Chair, item number 25 is our regular membership with our Oklahoma Airport Operators Association, cost of $6,500. We'll have their annual convention April 14th through the 17th in Monkey Island, Oklahoma. They have selected that location for, I think, the next 3 years, or I think 2 years. The first year was this year that it was going on. So staff recommends approval, and we'd welcome your attendance in April if you're interested in coming for a day or a reception or any and all the above. Stand for any questions.
How much of this is the membership and how much is our sponsorship?
Yes, it's a together, so our sponsorship is our membership. It's kind of like NASEO. These are our dues that we pay for this particular association.
So when you say sponsorship, are we hosting this thing?
No, we are not hosting. This is
Okay.
not one of the events that we host. This is hosted by the private association that is the Airport Operators Association. And our $6,500 counts for our membership as well as sponsorship for the annual convention, or conference. I believe they go with conference.
Has this stayed steady?
Yes,
All
yeah,
at
this
once?
has stayed steady for, I think, since we've been back from COVID.
Questions, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips.
Aye.
Commissioner Ortega.
Aye.
Chairwoman Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Item number 26.
Helicopter Association International Heli Expo.
Yes, Commission will consider approving a $5,000 partnership with the Department of Commerce for the state booth at the HAI Healy Expo, February 26th through 28th in Anaheim, California. This has obviously taken a much more prominent role for us because of the advanced air mobility activities you just heard Doug mention. While HAI was traditionally always the Helicopter Association, they have played a much bigger role in advanced air mobility, and it's become a much more popular event because of the state's companies that are very much in the turbine engine MRO game, which very, very interested in the rotorcraft arena, repairing those PT6s and other turbine engines that power rotorcraft. So whether it's mid-turbine, CTS, Covington, all those engine MRO companies. So staff recommends approval, and I'll stand for any questions.
Has the commission gone to this before?
We have, yeah, we were just there. That was the picture that Sandra was not a fan of. The state went for the first time as a organization this past year in January or February. But we have been individually from time to time. I know I've been once prior to us going as a state. Vic's, I believe, attended a couple times personally, just going to the show. This year was the first time we went as a state, and they're going back.
Do I hear a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips.
Aye.
Commissioner Ortega.
Aye.
Chairwoman Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Thank you.
Item 27, Oklahoma Women in Aviation and Aerospace Day event.
Thank you, Commissioners. I just wanted to say on Heli Expo that there is connectivity that comes out of that. We had a conversation and meeting with a young lady who is working with the University of Oklahoma on working on creating a helicopter flight school in tandem with their fixed wing school. So that's an important meeting, and I appreciated attending. The Oklahoma Women in Aviation and Aerospace Day event was held last Friday, December 8th, at the 137th Special Operations Wing, and it was our largest event ever. And I want to tell you, although it was incredible, it was incredibly difficult. So we started working with the base in June of 2023, and we had extreme adversity. My partner at the base is Senior Master Sergeant Andrew Lamoureux, and 2 months before the event, they told us that we were no longer able to use the secondary hangar for our panel discussions because there was a fire suppression issue. And so we walked around the base and we chose little sites there on the base for our panel discussions. So we had a panel discussion in their Mayberry Auditorium, which is their top secret briefing room where they talk about top secret stuff. And then we used the firehouse for another panel discussion. And then we had all these students. We had 225 students we weren't sure what to do with. So we brought a C-17 in from Altus Air Force Base, and American Airlines worked with Metro Tech and Career Tech, and they used the MD-80. And so all of those students were vectored towards the flight line. They went on to the military C-17 and onto the MD-80, and they had their own discussion and were spoken to by American Airlines pilots, and the C-17 group was also spoke to them, as well as Commissioner Deirdre Gurry from OSIDA, and also Major Heather Penny, who was one of our keynote speakers. I want to tell you, I was standing in the hangar. I was really tired. It was Thursday evening, and the staff had all come out, and we were standing there, and Lamoureux comes up, and I'm dying, and he says, "Hey, Sandra, you want to meet the C-17 crew?" Well, about 30 days before our event, our presenting sponsor was no longer able to meet their obligation, so we had to pivot, and that was a $10,000 sponsorship. And so L3 Harris was very gracious to come, and so our previous theme was United for Aviation, and so we changed our theme to No Grit, No Pearl. So I'm standing there in this C-17 crew is there, and I said, you're all women? Yes. And they said, our code name is Grit. I could not have predicted that. It's amazing how everything works out for a reason. And I want to thank our staff. Our staff, even though they don't see my vision all the time, they're still willing to put in their hard work with their hands and feet. And so please give our staff a round of applause. Chris Wadsworth is the MVP this year. He was just amazing, just helping us all be organized. And Michelle Bozeiden, our registration queen, did incredible work, but all of them. Andrea Post this year took on the Firehouse panel discussion, and she made it beautiful, and I did not have to worry. She is a powerhouse, and I know where she's going. We're going to see amazing things out of her. And Doug Wood took over the military panel discussion. Since he has previous military service, that was a fit for us. So I just want to thank our staff. I do want to thank this 137th Special Operations Wing, Commander Jason Davis. They tried to give us as much support as they could. We had all those people coming through security. I think that everyone got on the base in a safe and secure and almost happy manner. But I know there were some problems at the gate. But we want to say to our attendees, 1,000 people attended. We fed 1,000 people in 27 minutes. The Chicken Shack did that. The Air and Space Forces Oklahoma was our partner in this, and also the AFA Garrity chapter, the Oklahoma Defense Industry Association. Of course, L3 Harris was our presenting sponsor. We had over 60 community partners, and 250 military members attended from 7 military installations and 225 aviation high schools from about 25 schools. So I would also like to thank the Oklahoma Department of Transportation. The Oklahoma Department of Transportation, we can't do this event without them. They printed our programs for us. And also Eric Leslie and his team, they came and videoed the event, and so we'll make sure that you guys see that YouTube channel. But their partnership with us to make sure that Visual Studios is represented in the Oklahoma Department of Aerospace and Aeronautics is critical to our mission. So I'm so grateful for that. And I just want to say to Pearl Carter Scott, thank you so much for everything. So I yield for any questions.
Another terrific year.
Okay, we'll go to the next item, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, there's some photos, sorry. This is Colonel Eileen Collins. She was our Woman of the Year. She had 5 years at Vance Air Force Base, 500 hours, over 500 hours in space. She was so gracious. She stayed and signed all of her books until the last person left. She was an incredible honoree this year. This is the Firehouse panel discussion that I spoke about that Ms. Post was so amazing to do. That's Director Michelle Coppage with the FAA Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center. That is Kimberly Hutchings with the Whirly Girls International, which is a helicopter group. That's Chief Lair, who is over the firehouse there at the 137th. And of course, our Alexis Higgins from Tulsa International Airport. Okay. Next item, ma'am.
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. The agency has experienced a name change, and I just wanted to go over a few things with you guys about this. We had a great day at the Capitol. I told Director Artis we'd just keep it low-key, so we had 100 friends over into the Capitol Rotunda, and Grayson spoke. That is the famous cake that Grayson he has a problem, so... But we'll talk about that later. But that cake is from Granny Had One Catering out of Guthrie, Oklahoma, and Grayson ate that for 2 weeks. So I don't know. Again, our friends from the Oklahoma Department of Transportation were there to help us, as well as Senator Racino and Pro Tem Hilbert from the House of Representatives. And I do want to say about this. So the Oklahoma rules is a part of the process that we don't think about. And Michelle Bozeiden does the rules in the agency. She is our rules filer, and she needs a round of applause. Michelle, how many times was the name changed in our rules?
The name, 255, but you can't change them all because we still have a commission.
Yeah. So I just really, the tediousness of all of this, Chris Wadsworth, handling all of the changes for the name change, but it is important. Grayson and I were at a show in Las Vegas, and we were meeting with WISC, and I think this got us in their room when we said we're with the Oklahoma Aerospace and Aeronautics Department. It's important, and I just want to thank them for their work to make that change. And also, we want to thank Senator Racino and Pro Tem Hilbert for helping us with that. So thanks so much. That concludes my remarks on that, and I yield for any questions.
Thank you. NBAA? Convention?
NBA convention, October 17th to the 19th. It was a great opportunity to partner with Commerce and our aerospace industry partners to have a booth there at the conference center. Had certainly an excellent, I think it was about 12.5 different meetings with various companies, small and large. I know we still haven't found the picture that we took with Ed Bolin and Steve Hadley. That never came through. We had a great picture. Steve Hadley, as you know, executive director of NBAA, came over, congratulated Oklahoma on all the good work that we were doing, and just a great opportunity to talk about business aviation and how specifically we do MRO very well in the business aviation realm here in Oklahoma. Obviously, a lot of end operators, but there's a lot of MRO discussion, which is what's driving the economic impact of why we go to this particular show. And I don't know if we have any. No, we don't have any pictures loaded up. But every year there's this debate about, well, do we want to go with the bigs or do we want to go with the smalls? And I think there's a healthy combination of that at this show, that where it's not just the big aerospace companies that are doing business with Tinker and American Airlines, and yes, those are very important to the state's economy, but it's also the small companies that we see and we want to help grow and make sure that they're able to thrive here in the state. So it's the wide-ranging opportunities here at the business aviation. Sandra was there with me. We had many great conversations that I think we brought home, and I know Commerce is working a bunch of the leads right now, trying to secure some of those new companies that are coming to the state. But I'll stand for any questions.
Next up, item 30.
Next up is item 30, the 2023 Aerospace Forum. This is put on by the Department of Commerce ACES team. We are a sponsor of that and provided some speaking opportunities. I was on a panel. I did the closeout speech there at the end. I stepped in for Congresswoman Stephanie Bice. And I, was maybe a tenth of what she was able to do, but I did step in and provide kind of some closing remarks to the event that hopefully everybody was able to go forth and provide some of the great ideas that we're able to share. Obviously, aerospace is a big topic. The industry is a big topic. How can we ensure that this is going to be our state's foundation, our economic foundation for the foreseeable future? I think they had over 400 different attendees that signed up. Held on November 8th. And obviously these are the two major events in aerospace, this and Women in Aviation and Aerospace Day, as Sandra just mentioned. But an opportunity there to talk amongst our friends and figure out how can we lead moving forward. My topic I specifically hit was workforce. Obviously workforce being the largest challenge to the industry, and how do we bring workforce up to the next tier? How is the state working with some of their initiatives, whether it's the state chamber, the Oklahoma legislature, the governor, in ensuring workforce is a key item for everybody to pay attention to. Great event, and I think we're looking forward to it again next year. And next, I pass it back to Sandra.
Upcoming events.
Commissioners, this weekend, December 16th, at Sundance Airport, we will be welcoming Santa, and at 8 a.m. we're going to have a pancake breakfast with the EAA chapter, and so we invite everybody to come out, and the flying public and the non-flying public as well. It's drive-in or fly, and we look forward to seeing everybody there. I will be there. And then at Guthrie Edmond Regional Airport in the afternoon, I think Santa's going to be making a stop there as well. So we want to encourage everybody to explore aviation this weekend. As our flying season winds down, we kind of are sad about that, but we look forward to the springtime when everything is renewed and we all get back to flying. So if you have aviation events that you want to, anybody in the public that wants to visit with me about aviation events, I'm always around, and we thank you so much, and I yield for any questions. Thank you.
I think so, thank you. Director's report.
I will try and make this brief, as I know we're getting to the 2-hour mark of the meeting. And I just want to say that, you know, this meeting at the end of the year is kind of a review of all the great things that we've done throughout the year. And whether you heard people speak here today or not, the entire staff is to be commended for the agency, the department's efforts to support aviation aerospace throughout the state of Oklahoma, whether it's airports, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's administrative in nature, whether it's events, promotions, legislative, funding, financials. Everybody has a role in the team, and everybody is obviously well regarded, whether or not they spoke at these commission meetings, whether or not they'll speak at future commission meetings, whether or not they've spoken at past commission meetings. Understand that your team is working tirelessly and striving about as best as I've ever seen in state government to get the mission done of the agency. And I know you all hear that from time to time, but it truly is a team effort. And I happen to be the lucky guy at the tip of the spear that leads the organization, but I wouldn't be able to do it without the folks that are sitting behind me, because they are what makes the agency gel. They are the glue that keeps everything together, keeps me on time, keeps me correct, keeps the money flowing out the door, and ensures that aviation aerospace is able to do some amazing things. So, that being said, the director's report, obviously this is just a smattering of things that I have been able to do over the last several months. First up, I'm a part of the Air Force Material Command Civic Leader Program. That's kind of the graduation of the Tinker Honorary Commanders Program. I had the opportunity to do the fall gathering up in the Boston area. Really is kind of amazing to see what exactly goes on there at Hanscom Air Force Base just outside of Boston. I knew there was a base outside of Boston. I knew there was this thing called MIT and Lincoln Labs and MITRE, but I really didn't know what they did for the country's defense, specifically in the software and the cybersecurity world. It really is amazing some of the things they've got on. Of course, we were only able to just scratch the surface a little bit because a lot of what they've got going on is top secret and mission critical, and we weren't able to see it. But just knowing what was going on up there and how that provides a foundation for a lot of the nation's defense is pretty amazing. September 26th, followed that on with the McAllister Terminal groundbreaking. That terminal building is the latest that we have that's going up. Truly neat facility there at McAllister. Hopefully it'll be done sometime this next summer. We'll have a nice ribbon cutting once that's finished. The Airport Operators Association General Meeting, September 27th in Stillwater, Oklahoma. The new Stillwater Airport Manager welcomed us to her community and hosted us there for a quarterly meeting. The TRAM Summit, which Doug mentioned in his report, I think given the things that Tulsa is doing in the advanced mobility sphere, we were just talking about it yesterday, thanks to the OSU announcement for the new Polytech organization and the rebranding of OSU IT. Had a conversation about how can Tulsa leverage some of its future opportunities with all the funding from the Build Back Better program and some of the future things that they're looking at. And we were a key player in that room to have those conversations from entities all across the country. Pauls Valley ribbon cutting, October 9th. Great opportunity there to celebrate what was our first hangar that we granted about 2.5 years ago being completed, and had an awesome opportunity to talk about all the things that this is going to do for the Pauls Valley area. Great opportunity there to have a ribbon cutting. Item number F, legislative tours for the Monroney Center and Boeing. Senator John Hast, Representative Nicole Miller, and others, other chairs and members of the relevant committees in the House and the Senate came with us on some tours of the Monroney Center and Boeing on November 2nd. I think Commissioner Phillips, you were there for one of those tours. Obviously, Commissioner Ritz was there for no, you weren't. You were there for the Monroney Center, yeah, but not for Boeing. And so amazing opportunity there. to inspire those legislators to see here what's going on in the community, the aerospace community. Weatherford Economic Development Foundation, same day as the Aerospace Forum, they invited me to come talk to their Economic Development Foundation of what's going on there in Weatherford, how can they help the grander aerospace scheme around the state. As Doug mentioned, we were in Virginia for the Advanced Mobility Collaborative. Prior to that, we met with the MITRE Corporation. MITRE is a high technology and research, federally funded research and development organization. They are getting into the sphere of how can they help states, how can they help universities do some of the integration of unmanned aircraft systems and advanced air mobility. So we were there talking to them about how they could help the state of Oklahoma with some of their capabilities, and I think we'll have maybe a partnership that comes from that here in the next maybe 3 to 6 months. Look forward to seeing that and presenting to you and having you authorize that in a future meeting. And then last but not least, a couple of airport meetings that have occurred here in the last few weeks. Went to visit Sand Springs and Bartlesville to talk with them about some of their upcoming projects. And then Ada, Durant, and Shawnee talked with them about their future plans and what they would like to see for development at their airport. Obviously, all 5 of those airports are very much big economic drivers in their communities, ready and open for business, and we're just trying to help them plan for the best way to move forward as possible. So with that being said, I'll stand for any questions, but have the great pleasure of being able to present to you what we've been doing these last couple of months.
Any concluding remarks, comments? I might just say that as my last meeting as the chair, I thank all of you. I'm blessed to be associated with colleagues up here. I've learned a lot from each of you. And under your very strong leadership, I'm continued to be amazed at the capability of, it's not the commission anymore, it's the department, but continue to rise to new challenges and new opportunities. So it's been my pleasure. And in announcing the next meeting, it will be at 10 a.m., January 31st, 2023, with Chairman Charles Ortega presiding. Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
I so move.
We're adjourned.